Senator Jacinta Price has been calling for government intervention for years now. Now, she told them what would happen when these alcohol restrictions changed, and it still should be banned. And exactly what she predicted would happen has happened. Senator, thank you very much for your time, and again, congratulations on your campaign. Are you feeling any more optimistic about change coming?
Look, if I felt like the Prime Minister was actually listening to people on the ground, I might have a little bit of optimism. I guess I'm pleased that that the member for Lingiari, Marion Scrimgeour, is admitting the issues on the ground are quite severe, and that the alcohol restrictions should never have been lifted. And I would hope that Prime Minister Albanese, if he's not going to listen to somebody like me, who is a local, that certainly listen to. He'd certainly listen to people like Marion Scrimgeour, another Indigenous woman from the Northern Territory, who's being honest about what's going on in the community. But I'm not going to hold my breath. This is certainly a government that's interested in ideological approaches as opposed to being effective and taking a bipartisan approach to solving some of these issues.
What's a bigger problem here? The attitude of the federal government in Canberra, or the attitude of the Northern Territory administration in Darwin, who were, after all, the people who decided when the alcohol ban deadline came up that they would not, in their words, embrace what they claim is a racist law?
They've been part of the problem. They've been a huge part of the problem in not recognising that it is Aboriginal people in our communities screaming out and calling before the legislation came to an end to maintain the alcohol bans, and then of course the organisations, Aboriginal-run organisations, the 9 of them, who have been pleading with them to reinstate that legislation to ensure the bans remain. To claim that it's racist to effectively support vulnerable people in our communities is absolutely and utterly ridiculous, and it is racism to actually ignore those Aboriginal voices that have been calling for the solutions, that have the solutions. This government has failed Territorians over and over and over again, and they can't continue to hide behind their decisions to claim that those policies are racist. It's just not gonna run anymore with the people of the Northern Territory, because the people of the Northern Territory know what it takes to support vulnerable Territorians, both black and white, in the Northern Territory. And that's what the focus is for everyday Territorians, is about supporting our vulnerable, no matter who they are.
I've written a column about this tomorrow, and one of the things I have asked in that column, Senator, is where are the parents of children who are as young as 5, 8, 10, 12, 13, doesn't matter the age, wandering the streets? Where are their parents, and what are their parents doing to have the children at home? Now, obviously you have this vexed question of whether you should take children away from some of these parents because they're simply not able to parent them properly. But no one's game to do that anymore, because suddenly someone will start shouting out stolen generation again, won't they?
Well, that's exactly right. See, the circumstances for those individuals, for Aboriginal Australians who weren't necessarily part of the stolen generation, they're amongst the most marginalised Australians in this country. They have their language, they have a version of culture which is utterly dysfunctional because there's so much alcohol and substance abuse, yet they are the most ignored group of people in this country, and they are ignored by the stolen generation, who are largely in control of large Aboriginal organisations, who have had the opportunity to gain an education and access to all the services and everything that this country has to offer, yet they're setting the policies for children in these circumstances in places like the Northern Territory, who are remaining in those circumstances because the authorities has claimed that it's racist to remove them from dysfunction, and are putting their culture before their actual human rights to live a life with dignity, without exposure to violence and sexual abuse. And it's high time, as a nation, we upheld these children's human rights to live in an environment that is caring for them, that is upholding their human rights, and that is giving them the opportunity to become adults and not incarcerated, not on the streets at night like they are in our community here, so that they can grow up to be adults to make decisions for themselves as to whether they want to know more about their culture or their heritage or those sorts of things, but so that they have choice, eventually have choice. Because right now, that's completely stripped from them because of policies that claim it's racist to uphold their human rights as Australian citizens of this country.
How much does it break your heart personally, Jacinta, when you see an 8-year-old child wandering around at 1 o'clock in the morning with older children committing crimes? How sad does it make you feel?
Oh, look, there's a level of, it's so prevalent, and it has been so prevalent. There's a level of desensitisation, but there's also a level of determination to fight for these kids that have to go through that. When I get told by foster parents who say, we've been bringing up this child since they're a baby, and now the agency wants to send them back out to a family who they don't know, who doesn't have the ability to meet their needs, ripped out of a home in a community like Alice Springs where they're going to school, where they have all their health, their special needs met, and put them into a situation where they're with a potential for them to be re-traumatised, to be sexually abused, and to have to go through all that again is usually 99.9% of the time is absolutely and utterly heartbreaking when you know that can be prevented, and yet the powers that be are allowing that to happen. That in itself is criminal, and that is why I'll continue to fight for these kids, because I'll continue to fight for those families that are looking after these kids and upholding, their human rights. Enough is enough. We might have had the stolen generation. We've got a neglected, abused, and traumatised generation now, and they're right there for all of us to see on our streets.
Perfectly put, Senator. You're a champion. Thanks for talking to us. We'll talk again soon.